You know what I think is so awesome is how God, when you really are serious and you surrender your sin and just, God, I just need you. Lord, take the reins. I want to walk in faith and I want to trust you. And, you're humble and all those things. How God just really, when you're not expecting either, how he really shows up.
He totally did, but it was also that I journaled with him every morning what he was saying, so that then, I would type those things in so I could see the patterns of how he was speaking to me over time. And as I was waiting for those things to unfold, being able to see the words repeat and to see the answered prayers, those things are the fuel for believing what you haven't seen yet.
You're listening to Altered Stories with Michelle Gutch.
Hello, friends. Do you struggle with shame due to your past? Do you feel the heaviness of unworthiness and are desperate for change in your life and in love? Well, my special guest today, Loral Pepoon, was overwhelmed with exhaustion and fearful of midlife devastation due to her past counterfeit relationships, and she carried the heavy weight of unworthiness from her past relationships that negatively impacted her health and career as a creative team leader. And in our conversation, she will be sharing her God story about how God spoke and healed her heart for a new life of health, love. Isn't that fantastic, friends? This is your chief storyteller host, Michelle Saunders Gutch, and you are listening to the Altered Story Show Season 5, Episode 183, featuring my special guest, Loral Pepoon, who is sharing her Led to Lasting Love God story. Friends, the Altered Story Show shares transformational Christian women's God stories from all over the world so women around the world can hear them and never feel alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening and watching our show. And if one of our God stories has blessed you, then bless us and consider giving a pay it forward donation to help another woman like Loral share their God story. So now here is what you need to hear about Loral. She's an award-winning author of Led to Lasting Love, a writing coach, book editor, and beach enthusiastic person, and resides in Nashville with her husband and cat. And look at those back in the back of her. She has like all these different books, but her Led to Lasting Love is there too. So that's exciting. That tells us she is a true author friend. She writes. And so I also wanted to welcome her to the show. How are you doing? How are things in Nashville, Loral?
Michelle, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me. And things are good here. We have power at our house, so praise the Lord after the storm last night. And I'm excited for this conversation today.
Yeah. So it was so cool how God connected us, Laurel, right? At our Women at the Well luncheon event. And you were in
Yes,
town, right?
yes,
In Kansas
yes.
City. And I know that,
Mhm.
were you about ready to launch your Led to Lasting Love book?
I think that meeting was in January-ish, and my
January.
book, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
my book came out in December, just before Christmas. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, hey, here we are. And I'm so glad that God did connect us and you're here. And again, we want to share our condolences with you with the passing of your beautiful mother. And we're all with you and share our hearts there, Laurel. So thank you for coming on the show too again. So is there anything else about you that you're not going to share in your story that would be fun to know, about who you are?
Well, I think people can tell that I like cats, but I'm also just an animal whisperer. Any kind of animals. I love gobbling with the turkeys and baying at the sheep and all kinds of talking to animals of all kinds. So, and I also love chai tea and coconut water. Those are my drinks of choice. So, a couple fun
Wow.
things.
Yeah. So, do you guys have like a homestead there where you're at, or do you have animals, or you just like to, you know, be around them?
Yeah, we have a cat and here. We live kind of in a suburb, but we have done in on occasion farm sitting for other people that have land and just when we see turkeys just in our neighborhood or whatever, I talk to them. But no, we don't have a farmstead. Maybe one day we will.
I love to share women's God stories, whether it's at a luncheon event or whether it's through the podcast or, wherever God allows me to do that. And I would just love to hear from you why you think sharing your story is so incredibly important.
Well, we all have unique stories, first of all. And although every story is unique, there's universal themes that we all can relate to. And God uses particularly the hard or transformative stories to encourage others that might be in the midst of the hard things. So, right now, as I'm taking women in small groups through my book, Led to Lasting Love, most of those women are single or they're experiencing some sort of rejection or disappointment in relationship. And so we share our stories, whether verbally or in a book or however God or a one-on-one coffee, to encourage those that God puts in our paths in some way with something we've learned from Him or are learning with Him. And also, I just really value sharing authentically and from the heart and letting the other woman know that even though we may be at a different circumstance, we've all been there, right? And none of us all have it together. We're all a body helping each other, coming alongside one another.
Yeah, I love that. There's such a sisterhood that, in my opinion, that kind of unites us.
Yes,
And it doesn't matter where you're located. I mean, the
right.
story, you know, just really bonds or helps women connect and brings so much healing, I think. Whether it's the woman sharing or the woman that is hearing it, it is truly a gift, don't you think?
Absolutely. I know I've been encouraged from a nugget from other people I listen to, and sometimes God will just put someone on my heart or God will put me on their hearts and we send a text and it's like, oh my gosh, we needed that at that exact moment. Or how
Yeah.
he drew me to your event right when I needed that. So,
Well, what I loved about it is you're so obedient. I
yeah,
mean, you weren't afraid to step out and just be obedient and to make that connection,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, it was that particular time. It was just it was kind of like a lifeline. And I don't know, God just said, you need to talk to others who are interested in sharing stories right now in the midst of this caregiving season. And so I just went on Facebook and looked for anybody in the Kansas City area, and you popped up.
Wow.
Mm.
That's so
So,
cool.
yeah.
Well, again, I'm so grateful. God connections truly are the best, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to move on and talk about your led to lasting love God story. There's so much there that we need to unpack, but I would just love for you to go ahead and walk the audience through this story where you're comfortable, kind of where it began and how God walked you through and the transformational pieces, and then what God led you to in this area. I know He is repurposing and using you, and you're ministering and all those wonderful things. But, bring in, as I said before, anything that God did and showing up as you share this story with us.
Yeah. Well, just a quick overview. God really did guide me from desperate dysfunction to lasting love. And I kind of learned how to do relationships more from TV, movies, etc. As I was growing up. And so all I kind of knew was just grabbing onto whoever was there and kind of finding my identity and whether or not I was with a man. And so I'd been scared to be alone my whole life really. And then once I accepted Christ at 27, I thought I was he redeemed my life, but I didn't think that the good Christian guys would want me, I guess. So I still felt like damaged goods, if you will. And so I still continued that pattern of settling for whatever was in front of me and not believing I was worthy of a good, of the best relationship, or even I didn't really know how to do relationships God's way. And so at the beginning um, of the book, I'm just at a frustrated point, really at my wit's end, as another one of my girlfriends gets engaged. And I realize I've been holding on to this back and forth relationships that's not committal or moving forward. And it was long distance too. So I just really cried out to God, and He guided me to surrender and to ask for help. Um, I did the I asked a friend to do the Breaking Free study by Beth Moore with me. And I had that study on my mind for a long time, but I didn't even really want to admit that I needed to break free. But God told me that's what I needed to do. And then after I started that, um, I signed up for a spiritual retreat where they taught me to listen to God's voice and to hear Him speak personally. And though I had kind of done Bible studies in the past, I didn't really know how to listen to Him, or I hadn't been practicing it. And so at that retreat, the leader taught me uh, how to hear prophetic words for myself and for others. And I got the words bluebirds, blueberries, rocking chairs. Those are all the things that are on the front of my book.
Uh-huh.
Um, because then God started to fulfill those words in interesting ways throughout the books. And there's so many God stories in all that. But all I can tell you is that He aligned words, signs, and circumstances, clearly confirming that I was to leave Chicago and move to Tennessee. He fulfilled so many of those words with actual signs that if I didn't, and when I visited Tennessee, that if I didn't go, I would always wonder like what I missed out on. And living in Chicago, those kind of more like birds everywhere. I was this cosmopolitan downtown girl. I wasn't familiar with bluebirds or anything like that. Like I
Yeah.
shopped more in a cosmopolitan environment, and I actually didn't
Yeah.
even like blue at the time. And now
Yeah, isn't that
blue's my
funny?
favorite color.
And
So
you're wearing it. Look.
yeah, yeah. So so yeah, so the book shows the crucial ness of abiding in the Word and uh, walking alongside other females, and then also the importance of recording what God says, because if He gives you the Word and then He fulfills it, if you didn't write down what He said earlier, you may not remember it. So. Uh, so that's a little bit about what the book's about. I had a prayer list of 36 things that I wanted in a husband, which some say would be crazy, but He guided me step by step to where that man was after He changed my life, healed my heart, and um, really prepared me to have a Christian marriage. And then the book doesn't just go into the marriage, but it goes, I mean, to the day of wedded bliss, but it goes afterwards so that people can see what a marriage centered in Christ looks like sample stories in that. Because whenever I watch Hallmark movies, I think, oh, well, is that it? Like, I want to know a little bit after
Yeah,
the
because it
wedding,
always
what
leads up to the
happens.
romance, and
Yeah,
you
and
don't
then
even know, what happens. Yeah,
yeah. So I wanted to give
absolutely.
us a snapshot of that as well in my book. So that's what I do.
Yeah. Wow, there's a lot there, and, you know, the the question I had is how long have you been married now to your husband?
Going on 12 years.
Oh, wow, 12 years. And had he
Yeah.
been married before, or he
Yes.
did? Okay.
Yes. We were both married before, actually. And
And then how did you meet?
we met on eHarmony, an online dating site.
Okay.
Um, but I think the more interesting part is how we knew that we were to be with each other, because that's one of my favorite God stories. And that is on our third date, we were walking in the park and asking each other what we were involved in, and we discovered that we had both been divorce care leaders in the past.
Wow.
And at one point, like maybe a decade before that, because I was single for 15 years, one of my friends had said, maybe I should set you up with another divorce care leader, but that person lived out of state, so that never materialized. Um, but what that did is it showed that Seth and I weren't just compatible on the fun ways, but we were compatible in terms of perhaps our future direction and ministry, and it also showed that we had both dealt with our stuff from our previous marriage, because if you don't do that, then it'll just resurface. Not that any of us are
Yeah.
arrived, because we still have things, but it showed that we were both dedicated to allowing God to heal those broken places, because you can't be a leader in that program and not kind of
Yeah.
deal with it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Along the way, the reason I'm asking these questions is because I was married previously and wasn't in a Christ-centered relationship, and that relationship did not end well, and it took me quite a while to get myself in a place to where
Hmm.
God could use me
Yep.
and to get me healed through that to begin to date.
Hmm.
And at that point in time, I was still floundering about whether I should date a Christian man or not, because I
Mm.
was kind of growing in my Christianity. Well, God made it very apparent, and I'm sure you know these things, that I shouldn't be with anyone that wasn't a believer and, kind of yoked the way I was. And he did not allow any of those other relationships to happen. And then when my husband now came along, which ironically, we kind of met in a different way than, like you said, eHarmony, but in a kind of a dating app situation.
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting, but, um, I had a lot of warfare, and
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but I had a lot of warfare because I was not used to dating someone that was a Christian,
Hmm.
and, they operate differently, the pace of the relationship was very different. The respect that I was given, it moved all of that. I was just used to a very secular way of dating.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering when you were going through that, did you encounter warfare, in your relationship or
Not really too much. I would say the warfare was really more in getting me to my my new life. But interestingly enough, once I met Seth, everything just fell into place, confirmation after confirmation after confirmation. Um, and but it was different of how he was treating me. In fact, I was just talking with the woman on the phone about this the other night when I reveal in the book how, Seth, when we went to meet his sister and other and one other place we went away to for the weekend, like he paid for hotels for me to have a separate room than he did,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
And she was just like, "Oh, I want a man who thinks I'm worthy
Yeah.
of that." So that's just um, one difference. Yeah, I think God was just very confirmational. Um, I guess there was a difficulty in that I had moved to Tennessee and I was almost out of money because I had been there for almost a year and I had worked full time and God led me to do like part-time freelance work and I thought I was going to have to move back home to Kansas City with my family
Uh-huh.
and it was literally like I had started interviewing in Kansas City and so there was that struggle but I just knew that I knew that I needed to stay where he was and that God was providing for me, even, people donating. I'd never like accepted money or even asked for it. I'd been this successful creative director at a major company. And, anyway, so
Yeah.
that was so that was the part that was kind of new. But we have certainly experienced much spiritual warfare in our life together since then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, you can't expect that, but we also know that God's got it and has you, and you two are
Yeah.
doing ministry together, right? In, what you're doing, and
Yeah.
also, um, you have, you know, gosh, inspirational, just, these fulfillments, these prophetic, situations.
Yeah.
You were, the supernatural signs. I mean, those are things I think we need to pay attention to, you
Yeah.
know, and when we want to do and be in the center of God's will. And I know that just because, we're Christians, we're not going to be without struggles or whatever, but it's just the way we handle those struggles, right? And
Right.
who we go to when we have those struggles.
Right.
And I think having two people rather than one makes such a big difference when you're both wanting to invest, in your relationship and honor God and all of that. So,
Yes.
so the rest of your book, what happens then if you want to take us through whatever to get to the end of the book?
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you one of my favorite parts of it, and it has to do with the supernatural sign. So, exactly 14 years to the day after my divorce was final, this is before I meet Seth, um, I had three butterflies land on me as I'm journaling with the Lord in the morning. And I felt like he said, I'm transforming you physically, vocationally, and spiritually. And this was just a couple months after I'd been living in Tennessee and trying to reinvent my life with him. And that those words came to pass in that he allowed me to start my freelance writing and editing business. He helped me lose 27 pounds.
Oh, tell us more about. No, I don't want to deter you. That's always a good thing to hear other
Yeah,
people's
yeah,
transformation.
yeah. And then being just in the right place at the right time to have time to be in these spiritual classes at church that really were like an intensive uh, course, if you will, where I learned to journal with the Lord and having that free time when I was working part time to heal with Him. So that was a triple transformation. And yeah, the weight loss was through a company called Isogenics, and my brother and sister in law gifted that program
Uh-huh.
uh, to me, and so yeah, but it was so I had that triple transformation happen as prophesied through the butterflies in that year to come. And then on August 2nd, the next year exactly, was the day that Seth asked me to marry him, uh, in a place where I had gone to retreats in Ohio with my good friend, where we had prayed over those lists of 36 things for our husbands. Um, and the interesting, and it was right after she got married. And the interesting thing about that was how many things had to happen for those things to come to pass, because her wedding was supposed to be before I started dating Seth. So I would not have been in this special place at this right time with this right man had her wedding happened on the original date, which was changed because of her husband's military obligations. So you can look back and see, and then also we can look back and see how God orchestrates so many different things to put you in the right place at the right time with the right people. And then I got to celebrate my engagement with my best friend. And so, anyway,
Oh,
that's just an example of how he redeems everything down to that most painful day of my life, my divorce anniversary, then became my engagement anniversary.
oh, that's
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. That is
Um,
a beautiful, beautiful redemption.
yeah. So, yeah, Seth and I, like I said, we dated quickly, and we got married within 100 days because we both knew on that third date. And if you know that you know that you know, there's no reason to wait. We're advanced in
Yeah.
years at this point in our 40s, and ready to be together. And so I went um, from single to Nana in about a period of,
To
you
Nana?
know, to Nana.
Oh
Yes,
my god.
yes, and that too was prophesied to me. A lady, I went to her conference, and she gave me a prophetic word that said my grandchildren would read my prayers, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Since I'm 41 and single, I don't know how that's going to work out. um,
Oh, wow.
but now I have 4 bonus grandchildren,
Oh, that's
um,
so cool.
so those are some things.
You know
Um,
what I think is so awesome is how God, when you really are serious and you surrender your sin and just, God, I just need you. I take it, Lord, take the reins. I want to walk in faith and I want to trust you. And, you're humble and all those things. How God just really, when you're not expecting either, how he really shows up.
yeah.
And
Yeah, he
that's what he did.
he totally did, but it was also that I journaled with him every morning what he was saying, so that then, I would type those things in so I could see the patterns of how he was speaking to me over time. And as I was waiting for those things to unfold, being able to see the words repeat and to see the answered prayers, those things are the fuel for believing what you haven't seen yet. And so to
Mhm.
me, that's like one of the most important things. And as people are reading, in my book, they can read those prayers in my journals. And I wrote this book really because God just told me to write it. And actually, before I even decided if I was going to publish it, I took some ladies through it because I was like, "Gosh, is anyone going to really want to read my journals?" And they were like, "No, those are our favorite parts because we could pray those prayers that you prayed over our own lives." And
Wow.
so I just think, if I just prayed those in my head versus somehow recording them, um, then those prayers wouldn't be there. And that's why, as you and I both know, it's so important to write our God stories.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't write my God story for a long time, and it took me a while
Yeah,
but God told me I had to.
yeah,
He made it very evident that I had to do it. But it sounds like that's how he showed up for you. And now, of course, here you are trying to bring hope to those that might be struggling and, you know, helping people, and women especially get out of that terrible cycle,
Yes.
of choosing the wrong person for them, the wrong men and relationships. So, um, as we progress and we wrap up, but, I would love to hear from you, like anything that you might want to share outside of what you had shared, you know, for those that, just are struggling, and they can't seem to break the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I want people to know is that major mistakes don't marry you to mediocrity, and that dysfunction doesn't dictate a disappointing destiny for you, and that God delights in silencing your shame even when you shut him out in the past, and that he loves you with a lasting love. This book is first and foremost about how God pursued me with his lavish love to teach me what a strong earthly love looked like, because I didn't know.
Mhm.
And it's that sitting with him every day that healed my heart bit by bit, and especially as he continued to match, words to signs with various ways that he spoke my love language. It's detailed in the book. So most of the women that I speak to, they don't think that they're worthy of a love like that, and that is just a lie. Don't believe that lie, because
Mhm.
Jesus died for all of us, and it doesn't matter what you did, even yesterday or a few minutes ago. If you turn to Him, repent, and surrender, and say, "Lord, help me with this," uh, and give me people to walk alongside me, then He will be faithful in that. So I just want women to be encouraged uh, in that as well. And if you're struggling in a current marriage too, like, and you don't know if your marriage is going to last, like, just bringing God to the center of that and asking for help is important as well. So uh, the book will help and encourage anybody who's in either of those situations.
Well, it's great they have a resource. So now, as we move on to wrap up here, you can hopefully share a little bit about how you can be reached and, where, we're going to have the episode up here on your own page on our website, and we'll be out on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. But, we'll make sure that there are links to your book. And can you, just share any more? And then anything that you might be offering to our listeners.
Yeah. Yeah, the easiest way to find me is just, my website is loralpepoon.com, and that's LORALPEPOON.com. And if you go to that website and put a slash altered stories at the end, and just fill out your email address, I can email you up through the first chapter of my book free of charge. And that also includes an interactive journal as well, that you'll have access to. So it'll encourage you to buy the book and to apply the lessons that I learned in the book to your own life. So laurelpepoon.com/altered stories, and you can get those free gifts for listening to this podcast. And that's how
Oh,
you reach me on. That'll point you to the same thing. Facebook and Instagram is all just my name. So
okay. Well, thank you again for taking the time, sharing your beautiful God story with my listeners. I know that so many are going to be blessed by what you've shared, and I can't wait to share. And friends, as I said, we're going to have this episode on our website, www.alteredstories.org. And until the next show, friends, be heard and be healed.
Altered Stories Ministry is a faith-based, nonprofit, and women's evangelistic storytelling ministry. If you enjoyed listening to today's story, your family and friends would probably benefit from hearing how God works in the lives of women all over the world, too. So please, subscribe to our show and share the link to this podcast. Share it on your social media. We also welcome your valued feedback on our stories. Also, we'd appreciate your prayerful consideration in sponsoring one of our future God-glorifying stories and welcome your tax-exempt financial donation. To find out more on how you can support our ministry, you can log on to our website at www.alteredstories.org.